And Clergy Association of Kenya wishes to address certain pertinent issues that are of concern to the church and the people of Kenya. We have a responsibility to blow the trumpet as the Bible commands us in Ezekiel 33, verse 3 to 5. When the certain societal ills and injustice are left unchecked, to this end, we address the entire nation as follows. We continue to urge the Supreme Court of Kenya to consider devising the ruling that allowed the LGBTQ to register the association. We were shocked to learn that the Apex Court had dismissed the application by Honorable Peter Kaluma on a technicality seeking to devise the decision. As the church, we are appealing to the judges to come back to their senses and understand that allowing these persons to associate and propagate their agenda against the Constitution and the laws of our land has far-reaching consequences. Already, we are seeing our young children in primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions engaging in these ungodly activities to the detriment of our generation. This is what we are saying. Judges, consider your ruling because you are taking this country to a dark age. Kenya is a God-fearing nation. Kenya has culture. Kenya, we value so much our values. We want to ask the judges, if they feel that this thing is very good, maybe they would have started by recommending it to their children instead of destroying a generation, entire country. Probably they need to recommend it to their children so that others will see and feel that it is good. But if they feel it is not something they can recommend to their children, that is how bad it is. So kindly we are asking you, where were your conscience? Did you even think of our traditions? Did you even think of our values? Did you even think of Kenya being a God-fearing nation? How do you look at the whole issue? Did you even think of what God said? How can a man and a man fill the earth as God commanded, or a woman and a woman? So we want you to rethink your decision. It is not a good decision for this country. We also want to ask the president and the government to come out openly and speak about this issue, because this is an issue that is going to affect our generation. If we allow this thing to come in Kenya, a few years from now, we will not have a generation. And therefore, we want to see the government speak about this issue. Both the National Assembly and the Senate must exercise their constitutional mandate by ensuring they support Honorable Peter Kaluma's bill and further implementing other constitutional reforms alternative to the court ruling. What we are saying is that we will be watching how the parliamentarians will be dealing with this issue in Parliament. If they value this nation, then they should support the bill so that we cure this problem once and for all. We categorically state that we support the position of Honorable Kaluma and urge him to proceed without fear and favor. The church is solidly behind you. We want to see that bill get through so that we get away this menace. We wish also to address the rising cost of living in our country. While we understand and agree that the fuel issue is a global problem, There is need for the government of Kenya to come up with homegrown ways of cushioning its citizens from this kind of suffering. Many families currently have nothing to eat, let alone take their children to school. While we may not understand the intricacies of the government, we humbly urge the president and his team to cut down maybe on international trips expenses and all other necessary expenses which we see the government and officials waste, so that they can use the money to cushion suffering Kenyans. Today we have Kenyans who cannot afford to buy sugar, to buy flour, and even to buy food for their children. We are not blaming the government on the issue of fuel. It is a global problem, but we repeat, they can find a way of cushioning the suffering Kenyans. Because this issue, if left unchecked, then it will water down on every gain that the government will make. People will not see what they make if they are hungry. We also wish to address the issue of the registration of churches. Firstly, we acknowledge the efforts by the government in weeding out fake pastors. That one we acknowledge. We know there are some excesses to be checked. However, we are apprehensive that the recent deregistration of churches was not in accordance to the rules of natural justice. In our capacity, we wish to advise the Office of the Registrar of Societies as follows. The registration of a church or churches should be the last resort. When to deregister a church without giving them a fair hearing, you act against the Constitution of Kenya. A presidential task force is currently getting ready to table their report before the president. We urge that you hold your horses and allow this crucial process to complete, deregistering churches at the height of touching issues against some churches in Kenya potentially paints the Church of Kenya in bad light in the eyes of its people. Lastly, we urge that self-regulation is the only way that the government can weed out unscrupulous pastors and preachers. What we are saying is that when the registrar deregistered some churches, they did not give reasons. It is important to give out reasons because we don't believe that those churches were deregistered on the same reasons. And we are on record saying that we don't agree with what happened in Shakahola. That must be very clear. We don't agree with that. We don't agree with what one Mackenzie did. But the only thing we are saying, that should not be used against every church. We want the registrar to know, for example, when you have one registered church, it might be having, for example, 50 branches. And if there is one or two pastors who are in error, then how do you stop the rest, 48 or 45, from preaching? While we may not understand the intricacies of the government, we humbly urge the president and his team to cut down maybe on international trips expenses and all other necessary expenses which we see the government and officials waste, so that they can use the money to cushion suffering Kenyans. We are not blaming the government on the issue of fuel. It is a global problem, but we repeat, they can find a way of cushioning the suffering Kenyans. Because this issue, if left unchecked, then it will water down on every gain that the government will make. People will not see what they make if they are hungry. And make comedy out of the suffering of Kenyans. Kenyans are suffering and somebody is making comedy, is asking them to go and dig wells of fuel in their land. That is very unfortunate. And we want to urge our beloved president. We believe you can work and we believe you can do a good job. But then probably it is time you reconsider the people you gave some key positions in government, because they might water down everything you're going to do. When we look at those utterances, they are not utterances that should come out of a mouth of a minister. They are not supposed to come out of, because they are supposed to give people hope. People are suffering. Give me hope. When somebody is suffering, the only thing he needs is hope. But if you ask that person to go and dig her or his own well of fuel so that they can cushion themselves, that is ridiculous.